How's it going, Jack Tackers, and welcome back to another video for you guys. Today, I'm going to be ranking all 11 Fast and Furious films from the worst to the best. With the release of Fast X earlier this year, I thought this would be a fun video to do, especially now that I've actually seen Fast X and can talk about it while talking about all the other movies. So, yeah, before we get into this, I'll briefly say I actually like this franchise quite a bit. I think it's pretty fun, so I'm going to be mostly positive throughout the ranking, although these ones at the bottom definitely have a lot of problems and I'm not like a huge fan of, but we'll talk about it. So without further ado, let's jump on into the ranking. Starting off at number 11, my least favorite Fast and Furious film is Fast and Furious Presents Hobbs and Shaw, the spin-off with Jason Statham and The Rock, of course. And they're great, I really do love their chemistry, and I loved their chemistry in the previous films before this one came out, but this one's just too cheesy for me, and I don't know why. I think there's some really goofy one-liners, and I know that there was some goofy stuff going on before this and after this, but for some reason, it just went way too over the top, particularly with the character of Brixton, played by Idris Elba, and I actually really like Idris Elba in the movie, and I think his character adds a lot of charisma and kind of charm to the film, but he's also apparently like an enhanced human in this movie with cybernetic body parts and stuff like that. And, as he says in the movie, he's Black Superman. He quite literally is. It's just a little too much. The only thing he can't do is fly. Everything else is, up for grabs pretty much. He's incredibly powerful, which is the whole reason he can kind of, stand his ground against The Rock and Jason Statham, I suppose. But it's just kind of too much for me. And I guess I kind of miss some of the other Fast and Furious characters in this movie because, it felt weird just it being a spin-off without, like Dom and Letty and those types of characters. I don't know, but there is some fun to be had. It's personally my least favorite. It's a little too much and zany at times, especially in the third act as well. That's crazy. There's some crazy stuff that happens. Anyways, moving on to number 10, I have The Fate of the Furious. Now, this one's so low simply because it's very forgettable. It's a movie I forget about a lot in the franchise for some reason. Now, there is some good scenes in this. I do, again, like the Hobbs and Shaw stuff, which is the whole reason they got a spin-off in the first place. That scene in the prison, really fun. Also, I do kind of like, the final battle on the ice with the submarine. That was pretty insane and really fun, actually. However, I don't really care for like the central focus with Dom turning bad and kind of betraying his team, and it was just kind of annoying. I don't like Cypher's character either, played by Charlize Theron. She, I think she's a decent actress. I just did not care for the character at all. She was not interesting, and she definitely bogged the movie down for me. And I don't know, that's just my opinion. And a lot of this movie is kind of boring to me. A lot of schlock, and yeah, it's not as memorable as some of the other Fast and Furious films, in my opinion. Anyways, moving on to number 9, I have Too Fast, Too Furious. First off, absolutely love the name. It's probably one of the best named Fast and Furious films, if we're being honest. But it's nothing special. I do enjoy the introduction of Roman and even Tej, and I think Roman and Brian have really great chemistry. They work great together in this movie, so that's definitely a highlight of this one. And, there is some fun moments in here with, Ejectocito, cuz it's great. It's kind of iconic. But, it felt weird Vin Diesel not being in this one, especially because he was such a big part of the first. And I know there was reasons for that, but that felt kind of weird as well. And it was just, I don't know. It doesn't live up to some of these other films. And that's all I got to say about it, really. Anyways, at number 8, I have Fast and Furious 2009. Horrible name, first of all. I mean, it's just, you're dropping the from Fast and Furious. And another movie that's pretty forgettable, which is, again, why it's somewhat low here. And I do like the introduction of Gal Gadot's character, Giselle. She's cool, I guess, in the movie. And ultimately, this was just a weird transitional period for the series where it's kind of focused on street racing a little bit, but not really. It's also kind of, these bigger heist action set pieces and all that. And it's like a weird transition. It doesn't really know what it wants to be. And yeah, the street racing aspects are focused on a bit less, and the action just starts to get a bit more crazy and out there. And but it's still not quite as big, in terms of the scale as like Fast 5 or, Fast and Furious 6 or stuff like that. But the action is just, a little bit, more intense and out there. I do like the cave scene, though, towards the beginning with Brian and Dom, or the tunnels. That was a really cool scene, actually. I did enjoy that. And I do like that this is kind of a reunion of the original cast with, Letty, Brian, Dom, Mia. They're kind of all reunited in this movie because they were kind of scattered about. Obviously you had Brian as basically the main character in Too Fast, Too Furious. Tokyo Drift's its own thing. And this is the first movie since the original that came out in 2001 that you have the main cast members all together. So that was kind of cool, admittedly. But it's just, it really doesn't do anything too special, if we're being honest. Anyways, at number 7, I have F9. Bit of a controversial take, putting F9 this high. But I enjoyed it, it was pretty fun. I don't have too many negatives really with it, apart from it's just a little too over the top sometimes. But that's kind of to be expected with this franchise. And, simply put, I think the movies above this one are just better and more enjoyable. And I do think the space scene in this movie is a little much, which maybe, I guess, contributes to F9 being a little bit lower than some of these movies. Because really, space... I mean, I don't know if they were like full on space, but they were like, in the Earth's upper atmosphere or whatever, stratosphere, I don't know. They're bordering on space, and it was just ridiculous. However, one thing I really love about this movie that I think some people kind of don't, some people, I don't know. I like John Cena in this movie. I really think his character and the storyline between him and Dom and some of the flashbacks in this movie was pretty interesting. I liked it. And I liked that it was kind of revealed that there was like a secret family member out there. And I know some people thought that was a little goofy. It kind of is, but these are basically just soap operas at this point. So it's like, ooh, secret family member, Dom's secret brother. It's kind of cool. And again, I just like John Cena, so that might contribute to my enjoyment of this movie, I suppose. And it was also cool to see the return of Han. That's pretty awesome. Even though that was advertised in the trailers, it wasn't like a big reveal. But that was awesome. I do like Han's character as well. So, yeah, pretty fun movie, but nothing great, because we still have a lot more movies to go. Anyways, at number 6, I have Fast X, the newest of the franchise, the beginning of the end for this series. I had a lot of fun with it. It was not amazing. Again, we're not quite into the movies where I would say they're, like, really good. But you have Jason Momoa in here as Dante. And by the way, I'll try not to spoil this movie, even though it's been out for a little bit. But I'll try my best. No promises, I guess. But Jason Momoa as Dante was fantastic. Really, probably the best villain, or definitely one of the best villains in the Fast and Furious universe. He's very flamboyant and kind of goofy, but also psychotic. It was a very interesting performance, but I liked it. Really good action scenes in this one as well, there's some weird stuff, though, again, with, defying physics and all that. But yet again, feel like that's to be expected with a Fast and Furious movie to a degree. They don't go to space in this movie, though, so there is that. And like the storyline with John Cena and Little B, I think that was fun, and they had, a good dynamic. There is a cliffhanger to this movie as well. I'm not going to go into specifics, but there is a pretty major cliffhanger that definitely excited me, actually, and made me curious to see what was going to happen next. So there you go. Anyways, it's a good movie overall. It's not perfect by any means. Moving on to number 5, I have The Fast and the Furious Tokyo Drift. Okay, now we're getting into officially the movies that I would rewatch often. And this is a very self-contained story, obviously, in Tokyo. And it has none of the, main characters we had seen in the previous 2 films. Yes, Dom shows up at the very end in like a cameo type of appearance. Doesn't really count. You're introducing all these new characters. And I think this one's probably the most rewatchable Fast and Furious movie, actually, just because you don't even really have to watch the other 2 or any of the other Fast and Furious films to understand what's going on. It's, again, very self-contained. It's its own story. That's part of the reason I like it. And I do think, the introduction of the iconic Tokyo Drift song, that's pretty important to mention, I feel like. It's probably the most iconic and memorable pieces of music from the entire Fast and Furious franchise. It's awesome. Everyone loves that song. You know the one I'm talking about. And there's some good street racing moments in this, drifting And this really does feel like a movie that's focused on street racing. And I'm not even that big of a fan of cars or anything, but it was cool. And the Tokyo aesthetic was really interesting, and I liked it. I had a lot of fun with it. So there you go. But that's only at number 5 because the others are just a little bit better. At number 4, moving on to that, I have The Fast and the Furious, the very first Fast and Furious film that came out, of course, in 2001. This is, really the smallest scale the franchise has ever been. And humble beginnings, very humble beginnings. But I really like all the characters. I think it is a fun little introduction to this pocket of the universe. And I really like the character of Dom. I like the character of Brian. And I like that this is actually very focused on Brian. And it made it clear that Brian was kind of the main character of the franchise. And then it definitely kind of shifted to it being Dom. But I really love their relationship and their chemistry in the film. And yeah, it's a small-scale street racing movie that is fun. And that's really all I have to say about it. Anyways, moving on to number 3, I have Fast 5. A lot of people claim this is actually probably the best Fast and Furious movie. And I understand these top 3 are without a doubt the best of the series. I really enjoy Fast 5. And it's basically like a crossover movie. And everyone's kind of had taken note of this before. But all these characters kind of finally coming together. Roman from Too Fast, Too Furious. And, we have Han, because these are technically prequels to Tokyo Drift, which I always forget about. It's kind of weird. And, obviously we have Brian and Dom from them being kind of the main characters. And the introduction of Hobbs with, Dwayne Johnson. Really cool that this is his first movie. And this is definitely like the first Fast and Furious movie that kind of feels like the one we, come to know and love, because the action is way over the top. There's some crazy stuff that happens in this film, although it's still not really quite on the level as some of the other movies, just in terms of some of the action. But like the bank vault scenes, obviously fantastic. And I think that's a great moment. So it's a little bit more out there just in terms of its action. It's a bit more of like a heist type of film instead of just obviously street racing. But it's a good movie. I do enjoy it. And it was just really cool to see all these characters come together. And it's definitely one of the best, but not quite my favorite. Because at number 2, I have Fast and Furious 6. And I really enjoy this. And I have a weird connection to it because I think this is technically the first Fast and Furious film I ever saw in theaters. I don't think I saw Fast 5 in the movie theater. But this one I did. So I don't know. I have like a weird nostalgia for it. There's great action in this movie. Great fight scenes, with Gina Carano and stuff like that. Really cool. Also very cool that Letty's back in this movie. And I love the third act with the plane runway scene, even though a lot of people like to make fun of the runway just kind of going on forever. It's cool, though. I thought it was fun. And obviously the death of Giselle was pretty crazy. And the reveal at the very end that, Deckard Shaw is the one who basically killed Han. But Han's not actually dead, though. And this is the movie that finally catches up with that timeline. The Tokyo Drift time. Well, it's all one timeline, but it catches up with Tokyo Drift. And because it's just weird. Like Fast 5 and, Fast and Furious being set before Tokyo Drift. And I guess the majority of this movie as well. But at the end, it finally catches up with it. I don't know. It was cool. I also like, the villain of Owen Shaw. He's really good, played by Luke Evans, of course. And yeah, I don't know. It's a fun movie. I enjoyed it a lot. But it's not even quite my number 1, because finally at number 1, I have Furious 7. This one has like a very different vibe to it. Like this one has always been my favorite. I don't know. And I think a large part of it is, yes, it's the last movie with Paul Walker, and it's got the meme, see you again. But it's also like genuinely a great scene at the end when they play that song and they drive off. Like that's actually a beautiful scene, and it's really emotional, this movie, knowing that this is Paul Walker's final performance as Brian. And it's just, I don't know, it's something really special. Of course, that's not the only reason I like it, just because it's his last movie. It's also a fantastic action flick, in my opinion. Some of the best action in here. The infamous scene where Paul Walker's running up the bus when it's like falling off the cliff, and then he jumps onto Letty's car. Crazy. It's absolutely awesome. Stuff like that in this movie really makes me love this one a lot. Also, we got to see like Sean and Twinkie from Tokyo Drift for like, I think this is their first time we've seen them since Tokyo Drift. So that was kind of cool. It was a brief scene, but I liked it. And yeah, I think this is a great movie overall. It's emotional. James Wan is also the director of this movie, which James Wan's a fantastic director. And he really directed this movie quite well, in my opinion. And I think it's really special for that reason as well, that it's the only Fast and Furious film directed by James Wan. That's kind of cool. I think I'm just a James Wan fan, though. But yeah, there you guys go. That's pretty much my thoughts on all the movies and my ranking, of course. I don't truly despise any of these films. You know, this franchise is just kind of a fun little thing for me. It's goofy at times, but I kind of like aspects of each movie in a weird way. However, with that being said, post your thoughts and comments down below. Post your ranking of all the Fast and Furious films down below. Curious to see what you guys have to say and what, you know, you have to rank in what position, because that's kind of interesting to see. Always, I like seeing rankings from other people. But anyways, if you liked this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Subscribe if you're new. Check out my Letterboxd and Twitter in the description. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.